Any second now. And almost. Hey everyone, and welcome to Chef AJ and Friends. Before I introduce today's special guest, I just want to thank everyone who supported my new book, Sweet Indulgence, that came out last Tuesday. Whether you bought a copy or bought several copies or had me on your show, I really appreciate it very much. The book's doing very well, and I will find out tomorrow, which is like 27 hours from now at 4 p.m. Pacific time, whether or not I made the New York Times best-selling list, but I still appreciate everyone who helped me get this book out there. So thank you so much. Well, today is the first Tuesday of the month, which means it's time for Straight Talk with Dr. Doug Lisle, and we have some great questions. Please consider signing up for my newsletter at chefaj.com, because then you get priority on the questions, because we save them month after month until we get to them. Please welcome the incomparable Dr. Doug Lisle. How you doing, Dr. Lisle?
Oh, just great, AJ. Good to see you.
Good. Thank you so much. The first question, or there's several questions, people are wondering about your book because, they joined the Living Wisdom Library, which you're welcome to talk about if you still want people to join. So they're wondering when they're going to get a copy.
That's a great question. Yeah, I'm working on the last, well, I could just tell you right now, I have 7 chapters left to write. One of them is really easy. 6 of them, 3 of them are difficult. 3 of them are medium. Just to give you a little bit of what that means, I've written about 40. So in other words, this is a major book. This is a big, long tome. So I'll never do another thing like this again. So this is that's what I have to get done. And so, yeah, I would say I'm thinking I'll be done writing this probably by sometime in January. And so then I'll spend next year, the early part of next year getting edited. I have an artist that's going to be doing a bunch of artwork for it. So my very realistic hope is that the people that pre-ordered that book on our Living Wisdom Library will have a signed copy, in their hands by about this time next year. So yeah, I think we're about a year out.
Nice. And a few people are saying, will there also be an Audible version?
Oh, I haven't even thought about that. So there should be an Audible version, because I know that a lot of people like audiobooks. So there will be a version. I'm just not sure when, and I'm not sure who's going to do it. It won't be me. Yeah.
Great. All right. Well, we're going to start with this first question from Renee. And I think you like this because it's kind of more like the kind of questions you answer on your podcast, Beat Your Genes, which airs every other Wednesday. I believe it's 8:30 p.m. Pacific time, and there's hundreds of episodes you can be listening to. Renee says, Dr. Lisle, I believe my mate value and my husband's mate value used to be pretty comparable. However, as we age, mine has declined. As a woman in my 50s, I have noticeable aging cues and a less attractive figure than when I was young. My husband, on the other hand, blessed with good genes, has always been tall, fit, dark, and handsome. Plus, he's climbed higher on the dominance hierarchy and has accumulated more wealth and fancy job titles. Therefore, a better provider than when he was young. How do I deal with such a widening gap as we age? He seems to be more attractive, while I am less attractive to the opposite sex.
Well, I don't know how you deal with this. I mean, you have competitive instincts in you that are trying to do your best. Those things are going to be sort of instinctually driving you to be concerned about your appearance, and as well as be kind of nosing around and monitoring his behavior a little bit. In other words, these are all just sort of normal things that are happening. But in some ways, there would be a variety of perspectives on this that could be taken. But I would say that from my standpoint is that your real job is to live your life the way you want to live it. And if a person wants to come along with you on that ride, that's great. And if they don't, then they don't. Okay. And so this is we shouldn't be like, let's suppose that I had so we're going to alter this conversation slightly differently. Let's suppose I had a good friend. Like for example, Alan and I. So there was times in our lives when we were in school where we were very close. Then after we left school and sort of went on to college and so forth, then we went further apart for a while because we did our own things for quite a while. Then we came. It was actually quite a long time. We remained in contact with each other, and then in my mid-30s or so, after I had done a bunch of things professionally and scholastically and so forth, then we came back together again in my late 30s. And so then we worked hard together, and we're together for several years working on the Pleasure Trap and some other things. And then we went back apart again. Okay. And so now we're kind of in an in-between thing. In other words, it's very warm and supportive and funny and, slightly competitive. All of that is in there, but we're not, our lives aren't integrated at the daily level the way that they have been at times. That's how we should look at all relationships. And so there's an understandable but also unfortunate kind of quasi panic about, quote, our marriage being successful or staying together forever, like we're racking up some kind of score that that if we, by God, we're still together at our golden anniversary, then this is some achievement. It's no achievement at all. Okay, the only achievement is what's your happiness like on a day-to-day basis. And so if it turns out that this discrepancy that you are feeling in the mate value issue, we don't know if he's feeling it. In other words, that assessment is through your eyes. It's not necessarily through his eyes. Yeah, we don't know what those dynamics are. The dynamics change and shift as people age and grow in different ways. So the only real issue is, like, is this a person who fits with your life and fits well? And that we've got a mutual happiness process. That's all it is. And so that's all we're trying to accomplish here. There's no other, I don't know that there's another reasonable way to look at it. Any other way of looking at it winds up being pseudo esteem defense to try to figure out whether other people think we're happy and, whether or not it looks good, et cetera. It's like, forget it. If the two of you want to be married to each other and want to share your lives together, great. If somebody doesn't want to be with you and doesn't want to share their lives from you, then you shouldn't be together. It's that simple. Okay. So to me, what this comes down to a deep sort of psychological and philosophical principle, which is what I call a position of power. So a position of power is a psychological position with respect to any goal that is. So let me explain briefly what a goal is. So what a goal is a hypothesized state that you could be in, a location, literally with your physical body and your mental attention. That goal with respect to your environment. So you are in these circumstances right now. You could be in these circumstances right here. So that's a goal, is a hypothesized superior state to the one that you're in. And so that could be that, gee, I'd like my refrigerator to be full of a bunch of really great fresh fruit. Okay, that's a goal. Okay, so now I go and take the steps and I actually get to that goal and I've got a refrigerator full of it. And now that I'm sitting in my office, I have a goal that says, hey, one of those peaches would taste good. That's a goal. Anything that is a difference between where you are right this second and where you could be, including my goal to try to have this explanation of this question be coherent and make sense and maybe do somebody some good. Okay, that is a goal of mine in this process. So in order to explain motivation and our life experience, you have to understand that your life is nothing other than a set of goals. A goal and then effort to try to achieve the goal to get to that state. Another goal arises, we try to get to that state, another goal arises, we get to that state. That's how it works. And so the goal state that we're seeking has a is superior to the one that we're in. And so therefore the process of achieving it and its achievement feels good. It could feel good physically in terms of chewing on the peach, or it could feel good emotionally, i.e., oh, I don't know, I got an A on an exam and I got the exam back and, I got a good score, okay? So you can either have sensations in terms of something that you were seeking with the goal, or they can be emotions, which can be essentially a realization and a calculation that we just put on ourselves in a better position in life. So hopefully we have people in our lives that their very being who they are, they cause us to have a goal state go off. Hey, I'd like to talk to them. Hey, I'd like to get close to them. Hey, I'd like to hug them. Hey, might want to be physically intimate with them. Over and over and over, we can have somebody that embodies some things that are valuable to us just in the same way, that anything else would. So I have a cat that every time I see her, I want to pet her. And, in other words, so I love to see the reaction of her reacting to me, that she clearly, really loves me. And so that happens over and over and over again in my life. Now, so position of power is that what we seek is some life satisfaction that comes with some goal attainment. But if there's a goal that we can't attain, then we have to recognize, okay, it's not the only goal of its kind in the world. There isn't only one peach that's worth eating. There's not only one cat that's worth petting and loving. In other words, and there's not just one person that is the ultimate end-all be-all person that I can enjoy my existence with. So if somebody doesn't want to enjoy their existence with me, if I'm not their person anymore, if I was before, I can live with it. Okay. In other words, I'm in a position of power because the position of power is I'm not dependent on any one thing. I'm not dependent upon any one meal. I'm not dependent upon any one country. I'm not dependent upon any one possible mate. I'm not nothing. In other words, are there people, cats, countries, things that are very valuable and create recurrent goal motivation to want to get close, to get feedback, to enjoy that process? Of course, that's what love is. Okay. But that doesn't mean that you can't live without it. Of course you can. And of course that what can happen is that there's always another goal out there in life for as long as you're living. Okay. There's a something that's worth putting time and energy in to move from here to here. Now, the part of the nature of existence is that, so I mean, this is a maudlin talk about this particular question, and there's no reason for us to believe that it's maudlin, because there's no reason to believe that you are quietly having this, relationship slip away. We're not hearing this. We don't know what's on the other side of the equation. What we have is a woman who's looking at the situation, understanding that she understands enough about male psychology and understands that she's under threat from his inherent motivation to reproduce and to be physically intimate with people that, according to his Stone Age brain, are still potentially fertile. It would be naive for any of us to think that isn't part of human nature. And women that are 50 and 60 can still be tickling the instincts, even 70 can be tickling the instincts of men, that they can still be reactive and attracted in a way that they, somewhere in their minds, they're thinking the women are still fertile. Absolutely possible. So, however, so I don't want to be negative about this particular relationship in any way, because I'm not really hearing anything. I'm just hearing the anxiety of a woman who understands, hey, that part of our relationship, I've got some pretty increasingly heated competition. True. Okay. This is a reality. And so we don't know how that reality plays out. We don't know the entire the entire psychology of her husband on the other side. We don't know where she fits in terms of his goal states and how much enjoyment he has in being close to her. And so we can't really measure that. But all I do know is that the fundamental deep answer to your question is, you need to get to a position of power to optimize your life experience. So the position of power is basically the idea that, hey, you work hard enough, reasonably well enough to do the very best you can at everything: your health, your finances, your cats or dogs' health, your try to balance your work and life, and work and play and friendships. You try to have an overall balance of this existence that optimizes your life experience as best you can. If it turns out that one of your relationships in this life goes through a change, then we have to adapt to that. In other words, so we're always needing to do that, and it is never. It can feel tragic, but it's not a tragedy when the time for something comes to an end, and it's like, it just means that through that process, and sometimes a painful one, there's a new beginning somewhere else that never would have happened. So that is life. I don't think that somebody in their 50s that is giving me this talk is on the verge of any big crisis here at all. I think she's just a smart woman who's looking at some dynamics here she's feeling the footsteps of some competition that she wasn't feeling 15 years ago. And so those footsteps are there. That isn't necessarily a bad thing. And it's also, all we can do is what we can do. And then we have to let the chips fall where they may, and have the courage to, if they fall in a way that's uncomfortable, then we have to face it and deal with it in the best manner that we can. And that's all we can do with anything.
Yeah, that's
my little cat that people know, AJ, had a Christmas ornament made of this cat, and also had a picture made of this cat that hangs on my wall in my living room. And that cat, every day, now that she's about 12, every day I feel the footsteps of her mortality. And I try to pour my love into that cat. I want that cat so badly to somehow have it embossed in her for all time how much she is loved. That's how I've never had a cat like that. I love every single one of my cats I've ever had, huge. But this one is, they're all super special and like nothing else, but this one is completely over the top as far as I'm concerned, and for me emotionally. And so it makes every day precious. Every time I'm petting her, I'm thinking about this. It's not a terrible thing. It's a precious thing. And I want to, I don't want to have spent time doing something stupid. I don't know, looking at something on the internet that's useless, when I could have been petting that cat. So just so you know, I put on these glasses, and I'll lie down on my bed, and I'll put these glasses on, and that cat will come up right on my chest and knock her forehead into these glasses, because it feels really good to her to have that, to get herself scratched under there. And she'll just do that for like 5 minutes. And I have to hold the glasses so that she doesn't knock them off. And it's one of the great joys of my life.
Oh, that's nice. I feel the same way about Bailey. Thank you. That's a great answer. So the next question is from Mylissa. And she says, Dr. Lisle, I've watched your videos and have gained so much insight and knowledge about how our minds work, your esteem meter, your eternal audience, and about our fat shaming society. And all your lectures have made so much sense to me and will help me in my own process. My question is this: do you have any tips on how to bounce back from negative comments from people who are close to you, such as your family? For example, a family member who keeps repeating like a mantra, you must exercise or you will never lose weight, or you have given up on yourself. Why don't you walk every day outside? The feedback is damaging my esteem meter, and I feel like giving up completely because I know I cannot change this person's mind.
Well, I'll give you the broad, there'd be several different things that we would do, but let me get to the heart of the real heart of the matter here. So the heart of the matter is that you've got two general classes of relationships between you and your environment. One of them is going to be your physical environment, your physical ecology. And so that's going to be between you and whether you live in Dubai, where it's hot and humid, or you live in the Amazon rainforest, or you live in Beverly Hills, or you live in Kansas. In other words, you've got a physical reality that surrounds you, and that physical reality has an impact on your mood and your well-being. And so that's, human beings like beautiful, what we call beautiful things and beautiful situations, because what that means is that it's the features of those environments embody values, things that are valuable for humans. So that's why almost all of them, by the way, will show the most beautiful environments will show water, and they'll usually show abundant plant life. So if you see pictures of the French Riviera with beautiful trees and oceanside, etc., that it's prettier than seeing pictures of Greece that has beautiful beaches as well, but you're looking at desert. Okay, so it's like, hey, a picture of Greece and the Greek islands can look quite pretty, but we like better something that has that same ocean beauty or the water beauty, along with evidence that there's plenty of water on the ground that's growing beautiful trees and foliage. Okay, so that's your relationship between you and your physical environment. It means something. That's why people do interior decorating. That's why they have their yards pretty. That's why they like to go on vacations where there's pretty things. So I don't know anybody that couldn't wait to visit Calcutta, you know what I mean, for a vacation. It's like, no, I don't think so. Not a lot of people visit Dallas. I mean, I lived in Dallas. Dallas has beautiful places, but it's not Carmel. Okay, so it's not La Jolla, and it's not the Redwoods or New England. So your physical environment is a fairly big deal, but it's not nearly as big as your social environment. Your social environment, what I call your social ecology, is the most important factor in the quality of your life. And so your social ecology is made up of other people, their personalities. So you can imagine that your social ecology, you talk to anybody that's ever been through anything tough, and they'll tell you that they didn't really care how dirty and hot and miserable it was in a tent, but they were in there with their best friends, and they had the time of their life in some circumstance. Okay, so your social ecology, there's a reason why that's true. The deep reason being that a greater percentage of humans' ability to survive and reproduce has to do with their social relationships than it does with their physical ecology. As long as you're alive, you're surviving in the physical ecology. You may be wanting badly to make it better, but as long as you can survive, we're okay. But your social ecology is actually more determinative of your biological success, and therefore it has a greater impact on your emotional experience. So the most important part of your life winds up being the 4 or 5 people that you're doing the most interacting with. And if there's one of them in there that's a really serious pain in the ass, that is a very negative influence on your self-confidence or your support, if they're very critical, etc., then you need to do what you can do to X that person out of your existence. So you might say, oh, but it's my mother-in-law, or oh, it's my father. It's fine. It's my husband. Okay. We're going to look really carefully at that. In other words, the point is that the solution to the problem is what I call the disagreeable distance, or also in a different, slightly different description, what I call the optimal overlap. So I look at human life and human relationships as Venn diagrams between two people's life spaces. That the Venn diagram, the circle that's you, represents all of your interests and all your motivation, all the things that you want to do and who it is that you are. In other words, everything about you. And that somebody else has a Venn diagram of them. And what you want is you want that overlap between those two lives to be optimal so that the overlap is actually positive. If the overlap, even at a small amount, is negative, then those two people shouldn't be in a relationship with each other. Okay. If it's really positive for one and really negative for the other, then it is not a positive thing and the relationship shouldn't be in existence. And so that's what I would tell this person. The super high concept to this is that and you might say, oh, well, but then it's going to offend, it's my mother-in-law, and then it would offend my father-in-law, and then it would be upsetting for my husband because then we can't go over to their house. It's like, okay, let's get some other things in mind here that are deep truths about human beings. And that is, you don't have a relationship with a couple and you don't have a relationship with a family. And in fact, a family is a mythical entity. It doesn't exist. All there actually are is dyads. All there are is relationships between two people. Okay? There are not relationships between three people. There are only relationships between two. So you're like, well, my husband and I, well, we have troubles with our daughter. No, actually, your husband has a relationship with his daughter, and you have a relationship with your daughter, and you have a relationship with your husband. But the two of you do not have a relationship with your daughter. That is a mistake. Okay. And so a lot of things that are not clear to people wind up being clarity can arise when we dissect things down to the truth. And the truth is that only two people have a relationship with each other. There can be essentially environmental features of their environments, both physical and social ecologies of each of them, that influences that relationship. But that relationship is itself an entity. Now, so therefore, if there's some person in your life that's being critical, and but it's your father, but then you have this relationship with your mother that's close, but then your father says these negative things. It's like, okay, well, you need to then push your father out to the disagreeable distance. Oh, well, what, my mother would be so upset. Oh, no, too bad. Then you have a relationship with your mother and you say, well, listen, this is the story. Okay, the story is that, I've had enough of the negative commentary from my dad, and I'm just going to not put up with it anymore. So I'm going to explain to him that he needs to treat me differently, and that, and what needs to happen here, because his comments are not helpful. They are actually hurtful to the quality of my life. And so what I'm going to do is that I'm going to not see him or have anything to do with him for the next 3 months. And so you and I can meet for coffee, or you and I can meet on Facebook, or, FaceTime, or whatever the heck it is. We can do what we're going to do, but I'm not going to have anything to do with him, so that he can have time to think about that. And then I'll return in 3 months and we'll see how things are. But we need a break. I need a break from him. It's toxic. And I'm going to tell him so. Okay. And I can't tell him he's too ornery. Oh, write it to him. You can write it. Writing is a super good way of communicating for nice people, talking to people that are difficult and problematic. That way you don't have to get in an argument. You just say, they don't have a choice. You say it. And you say it appropriately, and you say it well, and you say it accurately, and you lay down the terms. And if they say, fine, I don't really give a damn. I think you're a fat slob, and I don't care if I ever see you. You're an embarrassment for my whole life. Oh, okay, that's fine. Now we know where we stand. In other words, we can be perfectly, legitimately assertive about people that are being toxic in our existence. We can lay down the law about what the rules are going to be, because we can dictate the rules. We can dictate the rules unless you are surviving on their payroll, because they are the person that you're financially dependent on, and you have to take that kind of abuse. Then we have to do the homework, and we have to go to the inconvenience of extricating ourselves from that relationship. remember what I talked about, all such relationships, all human relationships. And that is that the people over here have some values that they may be important to us, and we are here, and we want to search over here and to take the time and energy to get here to interact in a way to obtain those values. Okay, like I'm an artist and I really want that agent, or I'm a guy that really wants that girl, or I'm somebody that really wants that job, or I really want to I want to really hire that coach for my NBA team. I don't care what it is. Whoever this person is over here, the values that they embody are also located inside of other humans. They are not a monopoly over whatever those values are. Okay. So therefore, they are expendable. Okay. So you're like, oh my God, they are not indispensable to your existence. Okay. One of my favorite quotes in all of world history is from Charles de Gaulle, who said, "The graveyards are full of indispensable men." What a beautiful, penetrating synopsis of the realities of life. Okay. The position of power is you need nobody. Okay. You need people. You need what people can bring to your life, but you don't need any specific individual. And that puts you in a position of power over your social ecology. Okay. That is unbelievably important for you to recognize, i.e., to put it bluntly and crudely, you don't have to put up with any shit from anybody. All you have to do is you have to go to the trouble of seeing to it that whatever value they bring to the table can be found adequately and replaced by somebody else. Okay. So like I said, if you're financially dependent upon that person who's critical of you, guess what? You've got some homework to do now, don't you? You've got some inconveniences that you're going to have to put up with. Are you willing to suck up to that person in order to not put up with those inconveniences? Perhaps you will. All kinds of people have sucked up to a grouchy old grandpa in order to get an inheritance check. Okay. No shame, what do you call it? No shade on such an individual. That's a cost benefit analysis that you're running. But if you're complaining to me about how irritated and frustrated you are with that, I'm going to tell you, you're there by choice. Okay. You're there by choice. You have alternatives. Okay. So you have to run a cost benefit on whether or not, it's worth it to be there. And to my way of thinking is for this obviously is taken very far afield, but I'm trying to actually teach principles that are useful for literally all human action and decision making. Okay. So that's why this is a long answer to this question. And it goes back down to the very same thing that you heard me talk about in the previous question, which is the notion of a position of power. So I'm not putting up with anybody in my life that's criticizing me where I feel like it's unfair, hurtful, and if I've given them feedback that they need to keep their mouth shut and have a different attitude, or at least exude it to me and do an acting job so that I think that everything's cool, because it better be. Because if that's not, if I'm not enjoying my existence with you, then I'm not going to be there. Okay. And I don't care if you're, if that person's married to the CEO of Hi Muckety Muck anything, I couldn't give a damn. Okay. I can scratch out a living turning in bubblegum wrappers if I need to, rather than be on my knees to anybody in their criticism. So keep that in mind. You are a sovereign individual, and they do not have a weapon aimed at your head that you have to put up with anything toxic like that. Warn them, tell them it needs to stop, explain to them what you're going to do in terms of consequences, based on what has already happened. And actually, and I would even tell them, and by the way, it wouldn't hurt also for you to write me an apology. Okay. So if you want to take step one to repair this, we could start there. Okay. I hit them with both freaking hands, as far as I'm concerned, in a civil but totally reasonable and honest feedback, and then be willing to back it up. Okay. Oh, but my husband, he'll be so upset because it's his parents. Fine. You got a relationship with your husband, You don't have a relationship with his parents. You have a relationship with the individuals that are involved. Keep that in mind. If it means that it fractures a village, hey, you didn't do it. That dude did it. They did on the other side. And you're giving him totally paved pathway to fix it. Okay. And if they don't take it, then we don't need this relationship. And the entire dynamics of whatever is involved group-wise needs to shape and form its way like an amoeba around the problem. And that's fine. You know what I mean? I've got all kinds of people that aren't going to Thanksgiving where they used to go to Thanksgiving. Why? Forget it. What the hell are you doing? Go have the time of your life somewhere else with a social ecology that's positive. That's exactly where you should belong. And whenever anybody does that, it's like, wow, why didn't I do that 20 years ago? It's like, yeah, why didn't I do that 20 years ago? And the answer is because we didn't think through this problem and take action and basically rule over your own social ecology. Okay. All right. Good question.
Well, I'm wondering, Dr. Lisle, if people are not indispensable, why do so many people grieve for so long? Like I have a couple of friends that not recently, lost their mothers like almost a year ago, and they're still crying. So
yeah. Yeah. In other words, you're going to go through, if you go through a really major loss, you're going to spend a couple of years. That's what it looks like a human does. So it looks like the human grief process is, you know, if it's a big one, then you may go through, you know, a period of time and it may last up to a couple of years. But when we check out people about 2 years later or so, we start to see that they have done exactly what you'd expect them to do. And that is that little by little, they have searched out into their social ecology, tried to make some new connections in order to replace some of the values that were lost by the individual that was gone. Okay. So this is exactly how it should be. You know what I mean? And so believe me, when Annalise Scarlett Smith passes away, then it will be a while for me. You know what I mean? I won't want to rush out to the animal shelter and get a new kitten. I won't do that. I will go through a period of respectful mourning where I don't want to have anything to do with this process for a while. And then sometime in the next year or so, you know, I'll be ready. And then I'll go down and open up my heart again and ready to love again. And that's how that's going to work.
Thank you. I always say I'm going to do that, and then yet 2 weeks later I have another pet. I don't know. Just
well, there's nothing like the modern domesticated dogs and cats. They are literally, you know, they are unique in nature in terms of how lovable they are.
absolutely. So Brigitte wants to know, Dr. Lisle, why do people behave in self-destructive ways if they are following their instincts? For example, compulsive shopping, gambling, pack rats. With food, people are overeating due to a pathological environment. What in our environment causes other types of self-destructive behaviors, if anything?
Actually, if you look carefully at everything that's self-destructive, what's sitting underneath it is some kind of a deceptive distortion. So that's actually what's in food. So the food is deceptive in the sense that the taste is indicating that the food is of very high value. And from one perspective, it is, because the main important value of food in a natural environment is to get the calories to survive. So the food is not just calories to survive, but it's actually now super normal. So in other words, it's more calorie dense than was natural. And so essentially the person is being deceived. They feel the nervous system is, the instincts are basically saying, oh my God, this is really going to reduce our odds of survival related pathologies and potentially death. This is incredibly valuable. Meanwhile, it turns out it's actually super normal, and it's going to create systematic self-destruction. Okay, so again, it's distortion of the ability to analyze the real value of something, and then and often embedded in it is that there's deception. In other words, there's been, it wouldn't have necessarily started out that way. So the first time where they process sugar and then they put it in somebody's tea, they weren't intending to be deceptive, for God's sakes. They're just trying to make it as good as they could. So at this point, though, ever since the tobacco companies bought out big food in the 1980s and then started, basically told the neuroscientists that were there, the guys that understood all about the addiction processes, told them, okay, well, we quit working on cigarettes now. Well, now we need to start working on food. So that's why we've had in the last 40 years the fiasco of American food has outshined even what you've seen in Europe. In other words, that's why Americans have a greater struggles than the Europeans do on average with the food, because our food is even more ultra processed than theirs is. All right. Deception. So if you looked at something like gambling, okay, so gambling is extremely deceptive. Gambling in principle is not a problem. That's what animals do. In other words, you have a hypothesized goal state of something that you could gain, and here's where you start, and there's a certain amount of time and energy that needs to be invested in you getting this. So that's whether you're a fox chasing a rabbit, or you're a rabbit running away from a fox, or you are a squirrel going after some nuts in a walnut tree. There is the gambling, or the investment, as you would call it, in time and energy, but it's actually gambling about, you have to make choices. What are you going to do with your time and energy? You're going to choose what looks like the very best rate of return on that time and energy, and that's what you're going to attempt to get. Okay. Well, what gambling does is gambling essentially is extremely deceptive. So if it were two friends, flipping a coin and betting money on the coin flip, what's going to happen is, suppose guys do every day, they do 10 coin flips, and or they do 9 coin flips, and they're for $10 a piece, and so therefore somebody's going to wind up at least $10 ahead, $10 behind. But if we looked at that at the end of them playing this game for a year, we would find that somebody may be up a few $100s and somebody be down a few $100s, but the net issue between the two of them, that they're even. That's going to be what we call a zero-sum game. In other words, there's been a winner and a loser, but in principle, there's been no deception in the process. But when you see pathological gambling today, this is not what you see. What you see is that the gamblers are being deceived by the house. The house is extremely deceptive in what we call the rake, or the take rate, that's going on in gambling. And gambling is extremely deceptive about its payoff. So just to give you a little example, the rate of return on capital typically in world markets is somewhere between 5 and 10%. So if you make an honest 7% a year on your investment, over and above inflation, by the way, which is a deceptive process of governments, but if you made a real live 7%, that's pretty good. And that would take you about 10 years to double your money. So when I was a kid, they would say, if you double your money every 10 years, you're doing really well. Yeah, not anymore, because the governments are inflating the currencies aggressively. But if you were to double the real value of your money every 10 years, you are doing very well. That's a 7.2% rate of return to capital. Pretty good. All right, so just think about this. So I've got $1,000 and I could try to invest it smart in the stock market. And 10 years from now, hopefully that $1,000 would be worth a real live 2,000, a real rate of return of so in 10 years. Okay. Or I could go into Las Vegas and put that $1,000 on a roulette wheel on black. Okay. There's 30, I think there's 36 numbers plus 0 or something like that on a roulette wheel. So Yeah, I think there's 37 altogether. So there's 18 black numbers, 18 red numbers, and one white number, the zero. Okay. So we look at that, and it's basically, if I bet that money on black, I'm going to double my money. And how long did it take? 1 minute. Well, wait a second. Are you telling me that I could double my money in 1 minute? That would take 10 years of intelligent investment to double that money. Okay. Pretty exciting. Pretty amazing, actually, that is a possibility. So you can see the incredible lure to such a thing. And you'd say, okay, well, Doug, is that crazy? And it's like, yeah, because pretty soon, you're going to, most people are going to figure out that, yeah, but I could also lose it all. That took me 2 years to save that money. And so if I put that $1,000 down on black, it's gone in 1 minute. Whoa. So 95% of people will be like, I can't afford that kind of loss. That was 2 years of effort. Yes, I could get 10 years rate of return to capital, but they look at the whole thing and they're like, But somebody is going to continue to do this. And that somebody is going to be 5% of people that are inherently very optimistic. Okay. So they're going to have an optimism that it's going to be like, no, I think it's going to work. And so that optimism actually would not be devastating for them if there was not a take from the house. So if they literally put $1,000 down and it doubled, they'd be like, oh, look at that. Or they lost, oh, let me put another one down. Oh, the next one I won. If it was actually 50-50 odds all the way through, then there would be actually no net or no loss at the end of their night on average. So therefore, we wouldn't have them, selling their infant children or, burning up their disability check, et cetera, in order to survive and go down to the gambling tables again. Because the truth of the matter is they would not be net winning or net losing on a gambling process like that. But they do. And the question is, why do they do it? And the answer is because they're being deceived. It's exactly the same deceptive process that is taking place in food. So the deceptive process here is that one little number on the roulette wheel, the zero. It's like it almost never comes up. So if we spin that wheel over and over again once a minute in Las Vegas at Caesar's Palace, and you say what you're going to do is you're going to just you've got $100 you're willing to bet on each bet, and you keep putting it on black. Okay. Well, and then if it turns out you lose the first one, you put another $100 down, and then it doubles, and then you're back to even, and then you put another $100 down, then you win. Now you're up, and you're like, oh no, I'm not betting at all. I'm just going to keep betting 100. 15 spins into this thing, we're either up a little bit or down a little bit. 30 years spins into this game, we're more or less even. We may be up or down a little bit, not a problem. But the problem is by the time we've spun that wheel 37 times, at some point, zero has come up. It's rare. You could be there for an hour easily. They could have spun it 60 times and zero didn't come up. But sooner or later, zero is coming up. And over the long haul of that night, that zero is going to come up 1 out of 37 times. And when it does, everybody loses. Whether you were betting reds or blacks, you lose. Okay? And so as a result of that, that's about 3% or 2.7% of that's the take. So you don't see it every time because it doesn't show up. But actually, if we spin that wheel for 37 minutes, it will have effectively taken 2.7% of your money each time, but you didn't see it. It looked like it was fair. You put the money down, you doubled. It didn't come, it came up red, you lost it all. Seems completely fair. It is absolutely superficially fair, but it's not. They are very slowly setting you up. And then on the 37th roll, they take it all. Okay, now, that takes 37 minutes to take 100% of your capital. Do you understand how devastating that is? In 37 minutes, they took 100% of your capital. Statistical averages. You didn't see it. What you saw was an unbelievable opportunity in order to actually double my rate of return to capital in 5 minutes. It's almost impossible for me not to do that. If I put $100 down on the roulette wheel, literally within 10 or 15 minutes, I would almost assuredly be up $100. And I could walk away right there, and I double my rate of return to capital. Would have taken me 10 years to do that. But that's not what's going to happen. What's going to happen is, over time, with enough plays, the law of large numbers is going to indicate that it's actually going to be sucking out 2.7% of my capital every minute. It's unbelievable. Okay. It is so bad and so deceptive that the roulette or any other gambling system like this, the slots are even worse. It was so bad at bankrupting people that it was outlawed all over Europe within not too long after it was invented. The governments came in and said, this is absolutely devastating. We can't have this happen. But through some historical process that I don't know, somebody, it was so damn lucrative. I don't know who paid off who, but the one little place in Europe that they kept it was Monte Carlo. Okay. So what's the name of that? Monaco. So Monaco became its own country. And in that one country in Europe, it was still legal. And that is the Monaco that you see today. You know, it's the land of the rich and famous, and the famous Monte Carlo casino, the most famous casino in the world. And what built that thing? Deception. Okay. And who did they fleece? They fleeced particularly the 5% of people who are so inherently optimistic that even when they get beat up badly and lose a bunch of money, they can't see it, and their own openness and tenacity keep them in the game. So your question is, why are people self-destructive? You know, what is the deal? What's the deal with human instincts? Why should this be true? And the answer is, every time you see a self-destructive tendency in humans, you're going to be looking at some process of deception. So they've got some distortion in the game here. Whether it's drugs, whether it's food, whether it's, medical care, whether it's gambling, it's somewhere in this game, somebody's getting deceived. And there's probably a profiteer on the other side of it that is being driven by market forces, making the ingenuity of the deception almost beyond belief. Okay, so that's why we see these kinds of problems, and so a major component of trying to defend your life in the modern world is to understand that your genetic code, i.e. the genes that built you, can't be fully trusted. That's why I call my podcast, and Nathan Gershfeld, actually, the fine young doctor that does his in-home fasting for you, that people are interested in fasting. Nathan Gershfeld at fastingescape.com is an outstanding organizer to assist you in that. But that's why Nathan, we named it 8 years ago or so, Beat Your Genes, because this was the recognition, it's the extension of the problems that I talked about in the pleasure trap to everything.
Well, speaking of Nathan Gershfeld, it's his birthday today.
Oh my goodness. I did not know that. Fantastic.
Yep. He's a Virgo, just like you. Might you have time for one more question?
I sure do, AJ. You bet.
Thank you. This is from Corinna. Hello, Dr. Lisle. I might have listened to too much of Tony Robbins, but sentences like, I'm just trying to figure this out, maybe it won't work, etc. Can't those set us up for failure?
No. So, yeah, this is a great question. And unfortunately, for almost everybody concerned, the actual explanation is very long. So I'll try to keep this. I'll try to keep this very short, and then we can discuss the greater details another day. But let me explain that your consciousness does not program your unconscious. So this is a complete misunderstanding in pop psychology. So pop psychology thinks that somehow what you say consciously has an impact on your unconscious. The brain does not work that way. That is a physiological and neuroarchitecture impossibility. That is absolutely not how life works at all. So things that you can say, that you mouth to yourself, like, I'm the worst, ugliest person in the world. I'm the worst, ugliest person in the world. I'm the worst, ugliest person in the world, has no impact at all. None. You could say, I'm the most beautiful person and I'm doing great things. I'm the most beautiful person, I'm doing great things. It makes no impact at all. Absolutely none. Okay. So that is because your adapted mind, your consciousness has actually no influence over any decision making. All decisions that you make are being made by unconscious calculations. That includes the sentence that I will say nine seconds from now. I have no idea what the hell I'm going to say. What choices am I making? I'm not making any choices. What's happening is decisions are being made unconsciously in an unbelievably complex mind. And I'm not bragging about myself. I'm talking about humanity or a rabbit. Okay. The mind of an animal is incredibly complex. Literally, in the human mind, we believe that it is 2 trillion bits of data per second. 2 trillion bits. A trillion is a million. We believe the amount of data bits that is going into, just like there's an awful lot of pixels looking at Chef and AJ right now that are being transmitted through the wires and the satellites and everything else. But we could find out what those are. It's 400,000 bits per second or whatever it takes to put our stuff on there. It might be a million bits a second, but it's not a gigabyte a second. I know my computer's not that big and not that fancy. Okay. It's literally something on the order of a million bits a second. Okay. A million bits a second. Okay. That's how many data bits are in there in order to hear what I'm saying, see the movements that I'm making, see AJ's facial expression, see all the stuff that's behind us. That's a million bits a second. Okay. Multiply that by 2 million. Multiply that by 2 million. That's what your brain is doing. That's how much data is going through it. In order for me to select the words and be moving around the concepts in order to try to share with you information that's inside my head, that's what's happening. So did I choose to say the sentence that I did? No, I didn't choose, but I did decide. There's a difference. I didn't have a choice. It just came out of me. Okay? Literally, I don't know what on earth I'm going to say in the next 15 seconds, except that I do know what it's going to be about. Why? Because my unconsciousness is echoing up knowledge into my consciousness. In other words, so everything that's taking place, all decisions are being made unconsciously, but echoes of the unconscious process are arriving in consciousness. Okay. So the consciousness is itself an effect of unconscious processes. It's not a cause. So it doesn't matter what the hell your unconscious might say. Hey, let's try this new trick that Tony Robbins said. Let's see if we can say positive things about ourselves out loud, and let's see if they make any difference. And so it's willing to try it for a day and a half or 15 minutes. It's not going to try it for very long, and let me tell you why. It may be seduced by the fact that, hey, let's look at attractive, successful people, and if they say that we should do this, maybe I should do it. I don't actually think anybody believes it. I just think that they don't want to get kicked out of the attractive, successful person's crowd. They want to look like a good little foot soldier, because then maybe they can get some of the graft that comes from those other people's success if they get to join the troop and wear a badge. That's actually the motivational system in there. But some people are open-minded enough to actually believe that the reason why successful people are successful is somehow they programmed their unconscious mind by consciously saying, affirmations, etc. That's not true. That's not how the brain works. The unconscious mind actually ceaselessly seeks the truth. It will test hypotheses that are unlikely for a minute or two, but it'll quickly drop them. Okay. So, for example, I could say right now, Doug Lisle's the most useless idiot psychologist that ever walked. Doug Lisle's the most destructive, useless idiot psychologist that ever walked. I can say that over and over again. You think that I'm going to believe it? There's no way in hell I'm going to believe it. Okay. My adaptive mind seeks the truth. Okay. It can say all kinds of things in fantasy. It can say all kinds of ridiculous. Doug Lisle is the most ingenious psychologist that ever lived. Doug Lisle is the most ingenious psychologist that ever lived. It won't impact my actual self-image, i.e., what my adapted mind actually thinks of itself, 1%. Okay. That is because what you do consciously is actually the result of what actually you already calculated unconsciously. So don't think that saying when I hear somebody say something negative about themselves, I don't say, oh, shoot, don't say that. That's going to harm you in the future, you saying that. No, all I'm hearing is I'm hearing the echo of an unconscious process where they are saying out loud something that their adapted mind is considering very negatively about themselves. It's very interesting information for me. Okay. It may be accurate. It may also be inaccurate. Very often it's a hypothesis test. In other words, I'll never get a boyfriend. That's actually not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is I'm feeling like I've gotten such negative feedback that I may never get a boyfriend. I don't know if that's true or not. In other words, that's what the person is actually saying. And I'm asking you or making that statement to you because I'm feeling really bad about myself. And if I say it in a certain way, I may be, you can hear the pleading in me that is saying, is that true? Okay. So when a person says a self-negative thing like that, it isn't that it's a process that's going to program its way back down and hurt their self-confidence at all. It's just an echo of something that's already there. Okay. So as a psychologist, I'm never intimidated by any self-negative comment that I hear people say. I would never try to say, shame on you for saying that. That's going to program your mind in a negative direction. It is not going to do anything of the kind. Okay. So understanding how the mind works, is super useful for me as a psychologist. It makes me incredibly confident in the moves that I make. And so if anybody ever does say some negative self-talk, it's like, oh, okay. That negative self-talk is not destructive in the slightest. It's informative. It's like I'm an orthopedic, and the guy says, yeah, the outside of my knee, when I bend that way, it really hurts. Oh, don't say that. That's going to be bad. If you say that, that'll do negative damage to your knee. It's like, no, go ahead and bend it. Let me hear what the complaint is. Okay. Let me see what's wrong there. Let's find out, why we're having the pain. That's what I'm interested in. And don't think that complaining or saying the pain or including the negative self-inferences that happen to be in you at a given moment, those are not even remotely self-destructive. They are instructive. And that is the story of the nature of the unconscious, which is very carefully detailed in my book that is only 80% written. All right. 85% written. Getting close.
That's great. Thank you so much, Dr. Lisle. We'll save these for next month.
Fantastic. All right, AJ, great to see you. You look just happy and bright, and I'm glad you had a really great vacation with Dr. Goldham.
Yeah, he really wants you to come next year. He wants to play basketball with you.
Okay, well, we'll look into that.
All right. Thanks so much, Dr. Lisle. And thanks to all of you for watching another episode of Chef AJ and Friends. Please come back next Wednesday with none other than the man who we just spoke about